Good morning. Today is the 1st of November and I'm having a go at what's called NaNoWriMo, which I know many of you will know about. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, in which any participant can, if they wish, try to write a novel in the space of 1 month, 50,000 words in 30 days. That's the kind of challenge that people are setting. It's been going for a few years now. I know lots of people out there who've on YouTube have had to go themselves, and many novels have been written. So I'm having a bash. I've never written fiction before, but last December I did start to write some stuff, kind of coming out a lot of the antinatalist discussions on YouTube actually, which I found fascinating at the time and still do. And what I wanted to do then was to try and explore some of the ideas in fiction, because sometimes it's a bit easier to talk about in that way, I think at least. You can allow your mind to wander in different ways, can't you? So I started writing a story there, but didn't get very far with it. A lot of other things took over, life things and different kind of projects took over. But I want to use this year's NaNoWriMo 2012 to come back to it really. And I thought I'd give occasional updates here on YouTube, since in a sense this is the place where some of the ideas that I'm kicking around began, so it seems only respectful to feed them back. So occasionally what I'll do is I'll give updates about how I'm proceeding with that, or if I've just failed miserably, which is not beyond the bounds of possibility. And possibly also read little sections if you can bear that. I thought I'd just start with reading a little bit, because I've been trying to look through my notes from last year and see if there's anything worth keeping from where I started last December, and I've just found this bit, which I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I thought I'd read it to you and see what you think. I don't know where it fits exactly. You know, the story I'm writing is kind of about this young woman called Erin Fisher, who is, well, she gets pregnant basically. It's set in a world in which pregnancy and procreation is criminalised, doesn't happen anymore, and so it's the last generation. But Erin Fisher does indeed get pregnant by quite an arcane process, which I'll describe another time, but I quite like the way she gets pregnant. Anyway, I'm not quite sure where in the book this section fits. I think it'll probably be something like a sermon delivered by a priest or something like that, because there's a kind of priesthood in this world, which is somewhere between the Catholic Church and Google. Alright, but this will probably be, as I say, part of a sermon delivered by a priest. And at the moment, this little bit's called Need Company, if you can bear this. Here we go. Okay. The bad news took a long time to reach the living, although the dead had always known. Here was the source of all pleasure, the rhapsody of flesh meeting flesh, and the iridescent joy of losing oneself in the arms of another. Love in all its forms had been born that day, with this first act of love, like all subsequent acts, being also an act of despair. This was a moment in the life of being in which, for the first time, being alive meant not being alone, for being alone was all that life meant up to this time. For the eons which had come before, the tiny sparks of animation had existed like the most distant stars, floating and swimming in an infinite vacuum of the inanimate. But the emptiness that surrounded each of them was not what made them alone, for the emptiness outside was of no more significance than the emptiness inside, and each could be all of space, both interior and exterior, as there was no reason to make such a distinction. The reason for their interstellar solitude was the impossibility of their being together, the total and complete unity of each in itself, with no rhyme or reason to echo the needs and appetites of one another. These beings shared the world, but shared nothing of themselves, for there was nothing that they possessed which others had need of. All was a world unto itself, with a perfectly functioning ecosystem inside its tiny body, and the walls which closed that body and gave mute separation between inside and outside were impermeable to others. The owners of impermeable bodies have no need of pleasure and no source of pain, for there is nothing that transgresses the walls of that citadel flesh that might give rise to such alien sense. How could the workings of a silent universe, smoothly functioning as it did, ring to the raucous discord of feeling? The beings which came first were in accord with the beauty of silence, and there was no crashing cymbal of anger, no arpeggios of temptation, no drumbeat of desire. The earliest life forms, can we call them life forms? I suppose we must, since they, like their most revered descendants today, do indeed carry out the processes of life. There is the maintenance of bodily form, there is metabolism and the regulation of an interior structure. There is the division and the duplication of chemicals that make such division an act of replication. These life forms play the game of life, but play by older rules. They play fair, without the demon concern for winning or being haunted by the possibility of losing. They rise and fall in number, and each one splits smoothly into two, with no concern as to where the original one has gone. Mothers emerge into daughters, and daughters become daughters in turn, without the phase change of an unsightly death or the unfathomable genesis of the new. This Eden of single cellular truth should have been eternal. What God would disturb the perfect symmetry of this perfect universe? What strange anger possessed the angels to make them want to touch this dark perfection, bringing bright fire of feeling to the endless night? Perhaps it was the malevolence of time itself, ticking like a bomb constantly in the background of the world. Eternity, divided by the ticks of time into an infinite series of moments, making all things inevitable. With enough time, and surely there is time enough in an endlessly subdivided eternity, then everything must come to pass, even the graceless fall from Eden and the breaking of the world. So time entered the long dark night, in which being was simply being itself, and life forms were with form but without feeling, and each being was true unto itself, and there was no entering and leaving and meeting and parting, and the passing of time through the life world made each instance different from every other instance, and each followed the other like sheep, like lemmings, like elephants holding on to one another as they march obediently toward a future that did not exist before the entry of time. Each step on the march was different from every other step, and the journey was everywhere, and everything that could happen in this newly time-divided world was bound in fact to happen, and there was no way this could end well. All journeys may begin with a single step, as an old and painfully dying man would say many miles up the road ahead, but they all end the same way also, with weariness, with stumbling, with the discord that comes from sharing too narrow a path with too many other walkers, with the breaking of the rhythm of the walk, so that each step is ungainly and self-conscious. Journey's end is approached with an overpowering wish to set down the pack that is being carried on the shoulders for far too long. The last step is longed for as one longs for the last word in a particularly long and impenetrable sentence. In the long, slow progression of life that time has condemned being to walk, there was a moment when the going got tough. Inevitably, the chemistry of being and the life forms that hosted this chemistry got tough also, and the toughness of the going and the being gave an unfortunate alchemical inevitability to what followed. In all the universe, on a middle-sized planet orbiting a Class 3 star, in a small pool of grimy liquid on the underside of a rock, one life form was taken by the hand of time and led to perform an act of unimaginable and unique savagery. As the minuscule pool of moisture diminished in size under the rising sun of this world, the divinely simple beings that swam in this droplet were brought into closer and closer proximity. The space around them collapsed, and most of them followed the flow, collapsing along with the space and releasing their insides painlessly and fearlessly into their surroundings and becoming a greater one with the space. This one, however, held in the grip of time, did not collapse along with its brethren. It felt the pressing of those others around it as its universe evaporated, and at its periphery, the sense of something else. It felt the sense of something else, the sense that there, beyond the bounds of its impermeable cellular self, there was something else, and this something else was not itself. This not itself was pressing against the skin of itself, and this was the pressing of distinction. Over there, outside the walls of its body, was another being, alike but different, and that being, that other one, was not one with its self. It felt its edges softening in the places where it met the other. There was a movement in the plasm which circulated around its interior, and this movement was in the direction of the soft cell wall that divided it from the other. The wall that separated one from the other became a cave as the plasm shaped it to match the contours of that exterior being which was so close to being itself, but so newly recognized as other. As the infolding expanded to touch more and more of the other being, it felt its plasmatic arms extend to wrap themselves around that solitary soul out there and bring it close, then closer. These moves, purely automatic and irresistible, were given the strange accompaniment of a biochemistry that had never existed before. For want of better words, let's call this need. And the need for nutrients were driving being to take another in, fold itself around another life form and hold it inside itself, a captive in the house of need. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends, in small acts of consummation, driven by the need to fill the hollowness of time-bound being, an endless round of consumption for company, in which both consumer and consumed are trapped for all eternity in a deadly eukaryotic embrace. Well, there you go. That's that bit. It's, as I say, it's I don't know what it'll be. It's some kind of a sermon, perhaps, a little bit of a reworking of the eukaryotic revolution in cellular evolution. I don't know if that came across or not. If you've got any comments, I would welcome them. Thanks very much. Bye.